Hello, and welcome back to the Lazy Phasey Oddcast of Wonder and Whimsy. My name is Doogsley Doogertons. I'm your humble host. On this little Oddcast adventure, it's nice to see everyone. Hello. If you're new here, hello, welcome. If you're not new here, then hello again. I just said hello in a lot of different ways, but also in the same exact way over and over again. I hope that was as thrilling for you as it was for me. Hi, thanks for tuning in. I'm just going to cut right to the chase, okay? So today is our first ever, bonus episode, right? I'm not going to make this a bonus episode. That is like an option I can do, through my podcasting platforms. But let's just make this the new episode too. Because, I don't know, I saw we were 3 weeks away from our next episode, which will actually be next week. It'll be on the 14th of August. But I was like, you know what? I do want to fill this space with something else. So I decided, you know what? Let me just freaking talk about astrology. I just wanna chat about astrology today. I just wanna wax poetic about the stars and maybe go over a few basics. I don't want this to be like an astrological 101 video or podcast necessarily. Let's talk about the stars today. But before we do that, we gotta do a state of the oddcast. These are going to become less and less common as time goes on, but I figure as this oddcast is, sorry about my chair, as this oddcast is just starting to grow its roots, we're going to be going through some growing pains, and I've been getting some questions, and I want to address some things before we sort of dive into this episode. And this could be quick. I got 3 things to say, so I'm going to go through this really fast. First of all, at the time of this coming out, the final episode of Celestial Cafe has aired, so I just want to give one more final thank you to anyone that was a part of the Celestial Cafe community, the stargazers, in any way, shape, or form. If you've even watched a single episode of Celestial Cafe, you get a gold star from me, okay? You have surpassed all expectations on my end, and the fact that you showed up, enjoyed us, and just consumed... Okay, let's not do that. In any way, consumed us in any way. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. And for those who didn't listen to the episode, which I think you should if you watched us even once, I think that, ironically, our last episode was one of our best episodes. So, and it's a honker. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. What I tried to say when I said that, it's big. It's a honkin' big one. It's a honker. Okay, so it's like 2 hours long, but it's so good. I think that it is some of the best conversation we've had on the show, and we just kind of got real intricate with the way that we reflected upon the Celestial Cafe journey. I don't know, really cool stuff. So once again, thank you to all the Celestial Cafe enjoyers out there. I see you. And I also have a sale going on Phasey for all offerings. Because just to say farewell to the cafe, everything, you could use the coupon code Goodbye Cafe 15, and all the readings are going to be 15% off with that code until August 31st. So that's available to everyone. So I just thought I'd bring that up too. But yeah, shout out to the cafe listeners. You guys ruled and are part of the reason why I'm here doing this at this very moment. So thank you. And may Celestial Cafe rest in peace. What a journey that was. So that's number 1. Number 2. And this is specifically, so these next 2 messages are for YouTube listeners. So, and hi YouTube, hi everyone from YouTube that are listening in. You guys hold a special place in my heart because I do want to start making YouTube videos eventually. So this has been really fun starting to interact with you guys on there and getting used to that platform. But I wanted to say 2 things. So the first thing about YouTube is, 1, I can't put any links in my descriptions right now because YouTube thinks I'm a robot. Okay, so just hang in there. Give me 2 months to prove to YouTube I'm not a robot. My other option is sending them a 30-second video of my face sitting still, looking directly into the camera. Is that not so dystopian and strange? I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. So the other option is simply waiting for the YouTube algorithm gods to understand that I'm not trying to hack into their mainframe, or trying to hack you guys, I think is what they're more concerned about. Whoa, I got really excited there. And my final message for YouTube listeners, I guess this is also for Spotify listeners, is that video is coming. Okay, video will be a part of this oddcast in January of 2024. I need to take some baby steps. So I appreciate you all giving me the space to sort of figure out how exactly I want to do this oddcast, but tentatively, optimistically, January 2024, I will start having video, just so you have something to look at. I know for me personally, I have a lot of problems listening to podcasts without something to look at. A part of it just being like an accessibility thing. I also just think that would be a good fit for what we're doing here. I don't know. So just thank you again for your patience. I'm working on it. I'm just not ready to add video editing to my itinerary quite yet. I still have a lot that I'm learning with with audio editing. Yeah, I appreciate the patience and once again the love, and I've received such a warm reception to episode 1, and I just want to say I appreciate you all. So thank you. Thank you. All right. State of the Oddcast over. So now we talk about astrology. It's hard to know where to begin, honestly. So, and the reason why I chose this as this bonus episode, as this sort of not really planned, but something I felt like I should talk about episode, is because first of all, we're going to be talking about just astrology a lot here. And I wanted to give a foundation to what I feel astrology communicates to us, the art of astrology, which I believe is going to be the episode name, which might actually piss some people off. I think that to call astrology an art, full stop, just an art, is selling it a little short, because I think that it has the potential to, but I mean, art moves us. Art can evolve and change us, right? So I like to call astrology, it's a part of like my healing artist satchel of goodies. Like I personally use astrology for healing myself, like not medically, but like mentally, spiritually, emotionally, on all these levels, maybe more in these intangible spaces, right? But oh god, you can use astrology for so much. But I guess let me start with, I wrote down, I have a few like bullet points I want to get through. And I did write down, I wanted to try to define to myself, like, what is astrology? I came up with like a one sentence thing, and this is what I came up with. Astrology is the study of the correlations between celestial events and earthly events, not the causation. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up. They're like, oh, so these freakazoids think that because Mars is dancing and doing its little Martian thing in Libra, that is why we are reacting like this down here. It's like, no, that's not necessarily true. It's the correlation between those two things and us recognizing patterns and us acknowledging and believing in the magic of patterns and cycles. Because here's the thing. A key phrase that is thrown around a lot is believing or not believing in astrology. And it's like, I don't believe in astrology, wherein it's like a source of like faith, you know, because I'm very like pro-science, and it's like, at the end of the day, what is this? I'm gesturing to like everything. Like, what is this? What is the world? What is the universe? Like, it's more than just what science, physical science and hypotheses and conclusions and results are. Like, we're more than just 1 + 1 = 2. Right. We don't know what we are, who we are. Like, we have some basic stepping stones of like just comprehending like the science of the universe, but there's still so many question marks. And there's still things that we're digging up, like quantum stuff and like teleportation of light and atoms and particles. And it's like, there's still so much that has not been explored yet. And even our own understanding of science acknowledges the fact that we don't know about so much, and that there's so much beyond us, because we're living in like 3D, 4D, but I mean, there's gotta be like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11D, I feel it's foolish of me to just immediately count out anything that is not explained. And no one knows how astrology works, right? We don't have the science or the mechanisms to be able to study something like that right now in human history, right? And not to mention, I think that this is also a part of like a paradigm shift that needs to happen, right? I've been reading a book recently called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, and it's a book about mushrooms and how mushrooms are such an interesting and humbling mirror to the way that humans work and interact with each other, and maybe us learning something from the mushrooms. But something that's talked about in the book is, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's ultimately relevant. Up until like the 80s or 90s, we used to see every individual tree, plant, flower as exactly that, as individuals, as just standalone. Of course, there's like freak situations where like the roots combine sometimes 2 trees or 1 tree because of the way the roots work, right? But that's pretty uncommon. So for the most part, up until that point, we were viewing the tree in competition with all of the other trees, right? For the most part. And it wasn't until the 80s and 90s, which is when the internet, the World Wide Web, started existing, that the concept of like networks and huge, like, widespread community can be created. And it's almost like that concept and that mindset of like, wait, communities don't only have to be like a few hundred people. It could be thousands and thousands of individuals, which we never were able to ever access as humans until the internet was born. And almost because the internet inviting this mindset into our cognition, it allowed us to start to see like, wait, maybe the trees are also in network with each other. And it turns out that for miles and miles and miles and miles, trees are connected to each other through mycelium or fungus or mushrooms. And so there's microscopic roots that are like entangling and dancing and waltzing and being promiscuous with each other. And it's a very intelligent promiscuity where they pick and choose like, ooh, this tree will benefit me being the fungus, me being the mycelium. So I'm going to go hang out with this tree and I'm going to attach to this tree because I noticed that tree A is a little ill, like a little under the weather, but tree B looks really strong. And in order for me to thrive, me, Mr. Mushroom, I get to go underneath, take some of the energy from tree B, give it to tree A. Maybe, okay, I got a little ahead of myself. I'm really into mushrooms right now. But what I'm trying to say is because of the introduction to just the World Wide Web, all of a sudden, the possibility that trees are not just singular life forces, but are instead working together, it all of a sudden just like entered the global consciousness of just probability, and people just started thinking in new ways. And that's what I mean by like a paradigm shift needing to happen for astrology, similarly to the paradigm shift that happened when the internet was born, introducing all these new lines of thinking and ways to just process the world at large. I don't know what astrology will need for that to happen, right? Like maybe like proof or belief in things like synchronicity or like, I don't know. I have not pondered too deep in that, I must admit. Here's the thing. We just don't know what's going on. And I have always been the person to pontificate upon and ponder about the liminal. For as long as I can remember, I've played within the hedge of life and have danced with the space that is not entirely tangible, as this vivid, lucid dreamer since like age 3, as this person that has experienced supernatural and mystical things growing up in a deep ancient forest that's filled to the brim with fae. And I don't know. I find that astrology speaks to the idea that we are all holistically connected, that we are all a part of this interconnected, hand-holding, rising tides raise all ships type of system and connections that we create. And that when the celestial bodies shift and move and flow, it's less so that they're directly affecting us and more so that they're like pins in a map that's like, hey, the last time that this planet was here, this happened. What's happening right now? And also, what are the differences that are happening from time period A to time period B, which is right now? And how are these things manifesting? And people have been studying this for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. A very long time, okay? Since AD, with the Mesopotamians and stuff. Everything esoteric started in Mesopotamia. I'm just drop that down real quick. It's kind of amazing. Hello, it is late night editing Doogsley. I just wanted to pop in around this part of the oddcast, wherever I said to put myself in, just to let you guys know that during the recording for this episode, my grandpa started mowing the lawn, which was very nice of him, but because of the way that, like, I equalized everything, there's, like, this low static that's happening in the background for a bit. Excuse me, I'm very tired. So, I just wanted to, apologize for that. I don't know. There's not much I can do about it. I'm not that... I don't know what I'm doing. Straight up, when it comes to audio editing, I am winging it, so... my apologies. I hope it's not too distracting. Okay, I'm out of here. Bye. Like I said, it's less so like Mars playing you like a puppet, and more so like when Mars is in this position, Mercury is over here, and this sign is being interacted in this way, this pulley gets pulled, and this cog moves, and that's the outcome. And it's subtle. And that's a word I think I'm going to be using a lot in this episode, is the magic of the subtlety of astrology, which is, once again, I think very hedgework, right? Working in this very gentle space that you have to be really aware and really in tune with to recognize the shifts, which I think a lot of people already do with some bigger astrological shifts. I mean, you talk to any hospital worker or like driver or just someone that works with a lot of different individuals, and I'm sure they have stories to tell you about the full moons. I think it's very common for individuals to be like, oh wow, people are driving like crazy today. Is it a full moon? Like I've heard the most normie of individuals mention or quip that. I know it could just be conjecture and just like pleasantness, but like I do think that we do see correlations between those things. There are studies on things like that. And no, we may not have the science, the mathematical equations to back up the truth of all this. And here's the thing, too, that I think is worth mentioning as well. So let's say that one day it comes forward, there's this amazingly in-depth scientific research by Bob Smith. And Bob Smith, we all know Bob Smith, right, everyone? The famous scientist, right? And he says, listen, I did my stuff. Here's all my data. Astrology isn't real, right? It's just it's a fabrication. It's fake. It's fake. And you know what I would say to that? I would be like, okay. Like, what do you want me to do? First of all, what would you, okay, fine. But I also think that at the end of the day, I don't think it's fake. First of all, I've seen enough. I've been working enough in this sphere and comfortably enough in this sphere for me to confidently say, actually, that this is real in the sense of, like, this is my lived experience, and this is also the lived experience of my clients and the lived experiences of other astrologers who I trust and who I study under and who I respect. And it's not like we're living delusionally. And trust me, there is a lot of delusion in this world of astrology, just esoterica in general. I think that we do have to tread carefully and be very picky with who we receive information from. There's something called pop astrology, and that's what you get when you open Twitter, and it's like, a message for all fire signs. And it's like, if only it were that easy. And I think that sometimes all fire signs can be connected in some way, like astrologically in that moment, but not nearly at the consistency that these Twitter accounts or wherever else you find. I'm sure they're everywhere. I'm sure they're on Tumblr. I'm sure they're on Facebook. I'm sure there might even be in your workplace that come in and just have these sweeping notions. And that's what a lot of people have problems with astrology. It's very, wow, like Leos really respect loyalty. And everyone's like, well, everyone respects loyalty. I think the difference is that it's just a core inherent trait that is very regularly found in a strong Leonian, that's the first time I ever said that word, person, is less so of a direct, like, Leo has blessed you with loyalty, and more so, like, you are more likely than not to lean into valuing a loyal person. In conclusion, from everything I just kind of rambled about, there is no direct correlation between a planetary or celestial body that determines a thing to happen or a person's personality to form and be molded into a certain way, or any events that occur in the world, right? Because there's a lot of also like astrology that talks about, one of the first types of astrology was very like, we have to do this or else all our crops are gonna die. Or watch out, because when Mercury is in interaction with this planet, our next door neighbor's probably gonna come and start a war. Like, these are very fatalistic astrology, which is still a thing, of course. Usually these things will just like end for no reason. But instead of thinking that these correlations are occurring, instead what's happening, in my opinion, is that the celestial bodies that we are observing and that we are gazing at every night, it just describes and represents an archetype that is ingrained into not only the human consciousness, which I think runs way deeper than just like, I'm Doogsley and you're my audience. Like, it's once again this, we're all connected. And there are archetypes and lessons and patterns that the universe gives us. That's why I mentioned synchronicities earlier, maybe being a part of like the big code to crack us all just being able to embrace the art of astrology. I also believe that when we follow and notice and embody these archetypes and patterns that the universe gives us, we can learn many, many things and understand many things about ourselves, about others. Something I talk about a lot just in my day-to-day life is the power of myth and mythos, and how what a myth is this story that's been told over and over and over again throughout history in different parts of the world, at the same time all having these same rites of passage, like cognitively, that all of us humans go through, because we are more than just our mortal coil. And that we are all actually interacting and playing with each other on this intangible plane. I believe what I believe in is the magic of patterns and cycles and the stories we tell, the lessons we dare to explore and learn. And I think that the stars and the planets and our luminaries and our asteroids and everyone who waltzes up in the sky, they're teachers. They teach us. And I'm willing to play that game, and not only play there and explore there, I also am very willing to be the liaison between that world and for those who may be listening that are confused or overwhelmed, because this isn't just a dip your toes in type of work. This is an academic study. That's something I've learned coming into astrology. This isn't, not that I was expecting just to, I don't know, conjure up my own feelings and thoughts in this world, because, I mean, we've been hearing about astrology for so long, right? I think I learned I was a Gemini very early in my life. It's just a question a lot of people ask and meme about, even if you're not totally attached to or connected to astrology, you're gonna, like, that's such a Scorpio thing for you to do when someone's, like, walking around in 100-degree heat with their hood up, right? Like these comments that are kind of thrown around. And I think that I'm here to provide depth to those who want to understand the next layer of, and I mentioned like 4D, 5D, like I don't necessarily want to think that this is me like dimensionally crossing streams. It's just more so like this language, and that's another thing I would describe astrology as. It definitely feels like a language. This language that I speak it pretty well. So allow me to be your translator and translate what's happening up here and bring it back down to earth and talk about it here in the Oddcast. And I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about just like the basics, I guess. I understand that a lot of you are coming from my gamer world. So hello, gamers. You might not totally understand what the hell is happening in an astrological chart. So I wanted to just kind of run through the basics. Oh, and it's worth mentioning, this might not mean anything to you if you're like listening, but I figure just for posterity's sake, I am a tropical astrologer. Okay, there is a lot of different astrologies that exist. You might be familiar with the term sidereal. There's also Vedic astrology, which doesn't necessarily fall under... Ooh, Mr. Bubba. I think that's our first Cooper appearance on the podcast. He thinks there's an intruder, but I'm pretty sure it's just my mother walking around the yard. I'm familiar with my sidereal and Vedic charts personally as well. In fact, I feel very connected to my Rohini moon in Vedic. Honestly, tropical is where I feel the most comfortable right now on my astrological journey. I would love to go back to sidereal and Vedic and draconic and all those other types of systems to read the stars with. But for right now, I'm going to be sticking with tropical. And that means this is a very Western point of view of astrology, which does not make it like less accurate. There's a debate sometimes about whether or not tropical is more or less accurate than sidereal, which I think is all BS. I think whatever works for you, it works for you, right? I think some people connect better with their sidereal chart to their tropical chart and vice versa. Just follow what makes sense to you, okay? But just so you know, this podcast, as of right now, is going to be completely tropical. So just jot that down. That might not mean anything to you. If you want to understand the differences between tropical, sidereal, draconic, all those, there are plenty of resources for that, but I got lots to talk about. One more thing before I guess we start is astrology, I think, in my opinion, is best discussed in metaphor. I think that astrology is the storyteller's medium, for sure. I think in order to be a good astrologer, you have to be a good storyteller. Because it's not like the planets themselves can come up and be like, I'm Venus. Like, this is what I represent. So you have to really, as an astrologer, paint a picture that, if you're using tropical or sidereal, a lot of people use something called a circle chart. And if you look up circle or natal charts, you can see, I'm sure you've seen it before. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you've seen what they look like. And I know they're overwhelming to maybe the naked eye that has never dived or delved deep into the actual reading of a birth chart. So I kneel to that. But I wanted to sort of break down what I feel are the 4 most important parts of a birth chart. The way that I view, I'm kind of winging this, by the way, so bear with me. I should have maybe wrote down like how I want to do this. Okay, I got this though. So I like to view the birth chart, this circle, as a pizza pie. Okay. And there's a lot of layers to make a pizza taste pretty good. And there's also a lot of opportunities to make the pizza taste kind of bad. For the record, this pizza pie has 12 slices, which we'll get to later. Okay, but just know there's 12 slices in the pizza pie. So first, we have to think about the main flavors that come through on our pizza. These are going to be the heavy hitters and the strongest influencers of the taste of the pizza. And that would be our planets and our luminaries and our just celestial bodies in general. They are the most potent, the strongest vibration of the chart. And what I mean by luminaries, by the way, is our sun and our moon. That's because they're not planets. And we also work with a lot of asteroids. You might have heard of Chiron and Ceres. But all the planets are welcome, and they are our big, tasty toppings on our pizza. And so they're the ones that are really going to decide whether or not the pizza tastes good or tastes pretty bad. Because I think a plain pizza, let's say that there's no toppings on it. I'm a plain topping. A no topping type of girl, okay? The best pizza is a plain pizza. But sometimes you want to spice up your life and give layers to it, right? So this is so silly. Sorry. So we got like our jalapeno Mars and our aromatic, maybe like an herbal, like extra basil with Venus, right? And then from there, these planets and luminaries and asteroids and celestial bodies, they live within and exist within a sign. So there's 12 zodiac signs. You may have heard of a 13th, which exploded, by the way, and is not real. Okay, so get Ophiuchus or whatever the fuck it's called out of your head. It is fake. They keep trying to make Ophiuchus a thing. It'll never be a thing. It literally no longer exists, first of all. And second of all, it is just, that's pop astrology right there. Okay, so we got our 12 signs. So then this adds like let's say that the planets and the luminaries are the top flavor. The signs the bottom flavor. Okay, and the signs also have their own taste, tone, color, flavor that sort of gives depth to the planet in and of itself. So, for example, let's think about like Mars in Taurus. That's a placement I have. And it's worth mentioning also that planets, just because of the flavors that they emit, are better fits to certain signs and are worse fits to certain signs. And in this case, what we say here is Mars is in detriment in Taurus. Mars is not happy there. So imagine this really spicy, like I said, jalapeno Mars. Mars is fiery, a crusader. They pursue, and they're a marathon. I don't know. Like, Mars is all energy, very tangible energy output. It's also considered a malefic planet because it tends to carry a lot of lessons and archetypes that require a little extra effort on our parts, and that can be really hard when we live in a world and a society that already has us working to the bone, you know? But also, Mars is very heavy-handed, just like a jalapeno is. And meanwhile, Taurus, the energy of Taurus is it's fixed earth, and as opposed to cardinal or mutable, and earth as opposed to air, water, or fire. Okay, so it's a fixed earth sign. The fixed earth sign. And Taurus is rooted in the steady output, high endurance, like headstrong behaviors, high standards, right? When maybe the average Mars energy works in a more go, go, go fashion, when Taurus is more like slow and steady, wins the race. It's kind of interesting to think about because, so for example, in my chart, my Mars in Taurus is one of the most afflicted areas in my chart. So let's say I take a bite of that pizza, that big spice of Mars, and maybe what would Taurus taste like? Taurus would be kind of sweet, kind of succulent, maybe a bit cool because of that earthiness that Taurus feels. And I don't think it would, for me, that bite doesn't taste good, right? But maybe for someone else who has this placement, that bite could be the most refreshing bite out of their whole chart because maybe there's other places in their chart that taste even worse. And so that's why when we hear like people with Mars and Taurus are slow workers, derogatory, that to me says like, oh, okay, then you must have like a really healthy Mars. Like that is able to have a regular energetic output. Because for me, Mars in Taurus represents like a lack of energy. I'm constantly fighting burnout. My anger is very imbalanced in life as well. I feel like I snap at the weirdest things and things that directly affect my comfort zone, which is a Taurus thing, rather than maybe things that I quote unquote should be getting angry about, right? But to maybe someone else, that Mars in Taurus could be a source of actual rest for them. And maybe the way that they pursue their anger because of their Mars in Taurus is actually healthy for them. So that's why these sweeping notions of like, this placement sucks because of this, which some placements do just like suck. And what I mean by that is that they're just harder to deal with, right? And that's the problem with malefics. Malefics are just generally difficult. But okay, so that's just one bite though. Then we go into the actual pizza slices in and of themselves, and those are the houses. And the houses are very interesting, and I think one of the most underrated parts of astrology, I think, to the beginners, because I think that people feel very locked into the houses because it shows where the planets and the signs play. This is what grounds the astrology into mundane day-to-day life. This is what grounds it into our lived experiences. The houses give an environment for the signs and planets to play in. And it shows us how these loaded archetypes of our planets and our signs get to be represented in our earthling lives. Okay, let's now say that this Mars in Taurus, that is mine, exists in the third house. Okay, and there's like I said, there's 12 houses. They all represent different things. So, for example, the third house is the house of communication. Okay, it's the house of communication. It's the house of short and exciting vacations. It's the house of siblings. It's the house of anything cognitive sits in the third house. Honestly, the third house is kind of, like, in hindsight, it's kind of like the junk drawer of the houses. I feel like if something doesn't really fit anywhere else, it kind of just fits in this miscellaneous third house, in my opinion. And pretty heady. It's a heady place in the chart. So Mars and Taurus in the third house. Let's think about how that manifests for me. Okay, I'm kind of self-reporting doing this. I feel a little self-conscious. I can't lie. But I feel some of the ways that my Mars in Taurus is exclaimed to the world is I tend to blurt things out when I feel squeezed. Like when I'm really stressed, or if I'm feeling really high key in any way, shape, or form, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I tend to lash out with my voice. So blurting out noise, third house, when squeezed, Mars. But I think that a way that's a positive for me is that my third house has also taught me how to ground myself, which is Taurus, through ritual and praxis. And that's very third house activities. Ritual in and of itself is definitely third house mercurial energy. And this is something else that I feel is represented in my Mars in Taurus in the third house, is that I definitely exert a lot of extra energy, which is Mars, into my chit-chat and into my communication, which is my third house. I put extra effort there in my day-to-day life. And not that I prioritize it, but I'm a spoonie, right? I reserve my energy for the times that I get to communicate with others. So once again, this pizza slice has become even more dimensional because of this addition of the house. And then finally, the fourth part of astrology that I find to be very important, then it's when you start to watch how the planets interact with each other. And that's called aspects. We get to watch these planets interact with each other in their signs, in their houses. The synergy, or lack thereof, between each planet, they're called aspects. And there are many celestial energies that are interwoven in a chart. And for me, once again, using myself as an example, my Mars in Taurus is an aspect to my Saturn in Pisces. I believe that's a sextile is what's happening. Yes, you're going to be familiar with words like trine, square, sextile, quints. Oh, God, I shouldn't say words I don't know how to pronounce. Quincux? Man, I gotta learn. I read so much of this stuff, I've never said some of these words out loud. So it'll be very interesting and very embarrassing to do some of these episodes at first, I think. Bear with me. We're all learning together. That's all I'm trying to push here. We're all learning together, okay? So my Mars in Taurus in the third house is in aspect to my Saturn in Pisces in the first house, which actually doesn't feel fair because I'm Saturn dominant. Like, to use this as an example, because like my Saturn dominance just like takes over the rest of my chart in a lot of ways. And sextiles, if you'd allow me to explain, sextiles are considered a very easygoing, flowing aspect. There are good aspects, there are bad aspects, there are neutral aspects that are either good or bad depending upon who's at play. Bad aspects does not mean that you're going to, I don't know, dissolve if you do the wrong thing or play the wrong move regarding those planets' lessons, right? It's just the lessons may be more difficult for you to embody or you might have to work a little harder in order to create space for those planets to teach you something new. It's not like we are born and bam, this is your astrology. Like I said, astrology works very subtly, and I think that that's our like home vibrational point that we tend to lean into the most. I like to think of it, okay, another metaphor, here we go, a canvas. And the time that we take our first breath on this peaceful little earth, the frequencies of our celestial family up above, it blasts us, our canvas, okay, not us, our canvas, like a spirit bomb. We are given this subtle inner map that we can tap into at any time, and it creates us, capital U, like who we are. And here's the thing, life can paint this canvas as well. And this is our upbringing, our peers, our family, what we're taught. It creates then layers over top this base layer that makes us believe like, oh, like my chart claims that because I have this, and this placement that I'm supposed to be full of energy and always able to work. However, I'm constantly exhausted. Well, that's because the experiences that you have and your own free will always I guess dictate the majority and the basis of like who you choose to be. But I think that there's a lot of comfort in, hey, when I was born, I came into this world, first of all, worthy of love and a loving soul. I think that we grow into our charts a lot of the time. When I do a lot of things with clients, it's not often me being like, this planet here represents this. And they go, wow, I never knew that about myself. That almost never happens. It's mostly, hey, this chart is saying this. And then they go, oh, yeah, you know, I do embody that. It's almost like astrology helps people come home to themselves. You know, it gives people permission to tap back into like their truth and who they're meant to be, because I think we all have this rumbling of understanding of the roles we're meant to play in life, the goals that we desire and want to hit, like deep down, like our goals that are not affected by anyone else around us, not influenced by the world at large, but ones that sit deep within our heart, deep within our soul. And I think that it's like a fine wine. Like the older we get, the more that we find we are subconsciously leaning into our charts. Now, do I think that's the case for all people? Maybe not. I think that a lot of people have been handed shitty lives and are completely off track of who they are. That's why I'm happy to be here too. For people to come back home to who they are, who they're meant to be, instead of living a life that is rooted in and anchored in untruth, in things that they don't align with, things that they're doing only because it's comfortable, or it would be uncomfortable to do otherwise. Astrology is a conversation. This falls under like the divinatory umbrella, but like the way that I approach a lot of these divinatory subjects is like, I can't do it alone. What's the point of me just like shouting things at you? You know, I want to have a conversation. I want to understand, and I want to help you understand you. It's so funny, too, because, like, I'm talking very much in the scope of birth charts and natal charts, but there is so much more that astrology is capable of. In fact, it's very interesting because natal chart reading and birth chart reading back, way back when astrology was just starting to be taught in, like, astrological schools of study, birth charts were one of the last things that students were taught. In fact, the first thing they were taught was something called horary, which is the art of finding your shit. And let me give an example of that too, because horary is so fun, and I think that more beginner astrologers should participate in it. I think a lot of people get scared to participate in this because it's very mundane. Okay, let me explain. So let's say that I lost my phone. Damn, I lost my phone. Ain't no way. The last place I saw it was on my computer desk, and I don't know where it went. I noticed it was gone between like 1 and 2 p.m. So what you would do is you would cast a chart for the exact moment that you asked the question, and then you would start. It's so fun. You would be like, okay, so the phone rules. What would the phone rule? It could rule a few things. I mean, it would be mercurial, surely. So you would want to look for Mercury in the chart. I said that it was on the computer desk last time. So that could be like a third house place. And the first house is always yourself. And so you would like have to find and like sort of piece together this puzzle, knowing these intricate astrology rules, once again, like grown and layered upon, because phones didn't exist back in like 1000 AD, right? Like that was not a thing. And I mean, I just feel like astrology is a story thickener. I think is always what I end up upon as my final thoughts of what astrology does for my life and does for other people's lives. It's a validator. It's an explainer of energy as well, where like I said, there's so much that we do not even know or can begin to understand with our concepts of what's happening in our brains, right? We cannot, there are some things we cannot even begin to conceptualize in life. And I think that astrology is such an interesting, humbling, and magical medium for being able to offer depth in these intricate parts of our lives that maybe we just are having trouble accessing or even questioning. I have so many readings where people come in and they're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I actually trusting my gut right now? or am I being inspired and driven because of something else entirely? And I think that astrology is the best for those types of questions, because then we get to go back home. We get to go back home to that canvas that was so subtly imprinted upon us and just really lean into our truths. Is there possibilities that our original canvas has been painted over so much that there's layers and layers and layers of paint, and we have to scrape and scrape at these learned habits, at these ideals and mindsets and morals that are not ours, that have been imposed upon us because of society, because of our family, because of friends? Yes, I do think so. I think that there are those layers that are impossible to go through, but do I think that, is it like literally impossible? No, I think we can always, it might take a long time. It could take years and years and years and years and years of unlearning, because it took you years and years and years and years to learn. So of course it's not an overnight thing to come back to our basis, our baseline, our foundations. But I think it is possible. And I think astrology is one of the coolest, most creative, most imaginatory, expansive, and brave ways to access that. I say brave just because there's so much bullshit about astrology, and it gets a pretty bad rap, and I can't blame anyone for feeling that way, because a lot of people have bastardized it into being things like pop astrology. Is it some people's pipeline into astrology? Yes. So I kneel to that. But I think that when we see people that claim, and once again, it's those blanket statements that are like, for all the water signs, it's like, who are you? Like, you don't know how my water signs plays. You don't know how it dances with the rest of my chart. And also a sign, I work with my planets. Like, the signs are just like a dimension of the main planetary vibration. You know what I mean? Like, it's more than I just find those claims to be unsafe and unfair to astrologers, and they spend days like delineating and how the chart progresses, and even doing things like, and like I said, like, so that what I'm talking about is very Western. I mean, the fact that so much of what I'm doing is focusing on the individual. You can't help but laugh. Like, and we also have to acknowledge the fact that the reason why a lot of astrologers are leaning into our individual selves is because we can finally afford to, right? Because back when astrology first existed, people were worried about like having crops to live, right? No one was worried about their self-growth or their like morals or their ethics back when they were just trying to make it to the next season, right? So this is all pretty new, where for the most part, at least here, at least in my privileged position where I get to sit in my computer chair and talk to you and those who are receiving me, we get to talk about like, how can I be a better person in my community? And how can I make sure that I am following my dreams? We have the privilege to be able to explore those subjects, but there are still subjects in astrology that deal with like I said, like fatalistic approaches, medical approaches. There is medical astrology, by the way, and I haven't looked too deep into that, but it's very fascinating and does hold weight, just like other factions of astrology. There's something called synastry, which is the astrology between people, being able to overlay one chart over another and seeing how those two charts interact with each other. Right? There's something called electional astrology that I participate in as well, where it's like, I'll give an example. Oh man, like I have a job interview in 2 weeks and I would love to spend a night, and this is for our magical folk, right? I would love to spend a night doing some magic or working with a planet that can help me secure this job. And so you would look at the charts, the astrological charts for the next 2 weeks, and depending upon why you want this job. You might want it for money. You might want it for power. You might want it because it'll be good on your resume in the future, depending upon what part of the job you desire. Maybe you just want to be more social. You want to get out there. If that's the case, if you want this job because you want to make friends and make new connections, you're going to look at Mercury and you're going to find the night where Mercury is in its happiest, most prime power, and then that night you like make devotions to Mercury, you work with the planetary archetypes, and you call in that energy and you do something towards this interview on that night. That's you're electing a planet, electional astrology, to like work alongside you. And I mean, like I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, like what we're going to talk about here and what I just talked about today only scratches the surface of what astrology is capable of. And that's me saying that also as someone who is not even aware of all the capabilities quite yet. So I've been aware of the astrological world and at the very least, like the basics, like my big three and the planets, right, since about high school. But I've only just started to study, get textbooks, like dedicate time and energy into strengthening my intelligentsia with astrology over the last maybe 4 years. So we are all in this together, and I just wanted to take this time today to talk a little bit about how I feel about all of this. And, for over an hour. I should probably wrap up. There's still so much I want to say, but honestly, tune into my astrology episodes. The next episode that we're going to be spending together, which will be on the 14th of August, will be our first lunation forecast for this upcoming new moon in Leo lunation. It's going to be a part of the supermoon season. By the way, I hope everyone had an awesome supermoon on the 1st of August. Wow, it has been so refreshing for me personally. And once again, maybe for your chart, maybe that flavor of that full moon tastes really bitter and gross and has made you feel horrible. But for me, because of the way that my chart works, I have been glowing and I've been preparing for this because I know how much my chart needed this Leo remediation. So it's very interesting, right? And these are the things that we get to learn about ourselves, about our charts, about these little intricate, subtle, energetic shifts, because we're all in this together, including our celestial family up above. I think that's it from me. I can't wait to talk more with you guys and to learn more with you guys about all of this. I hope that this was an interesting episode. I didn't really know what I was doing going into this. I gotta admit, like I said, I got through my bullet points, so I feel pretty happy. For those who are skeptics listening, I invite you to join me. I was a skeptic too. That was a part of the reason why I got into astrology, because I wanted to believe, but I had no reason to believe. And after about 2 years of study, I could confidently say, like, okay, there's something here. So maybe you just need a couple years with me. Me, someone who probably isn't as poetic or down bad for astrology. I don't know why I said that. As other people are. I don't know. Let's fucking do this. That's all I gotta say. Let's fucking do this. Let's just keep the good times rolling. That's what I always say. Yep, I think that's it. All right. Thank you all for listening. This has been such a fun little episode for me to record. I've had a smile on my face this whole time. I love astrology, and I hope that I can encourage you guys to love it as much as I do and be involved in the dance of the stars that we're all a part of. And what a beautiful life we live with all these beautiful little signs and messages that, I mean, is there anything more magical than being blessed and to be in alignment with the stars above us? I don't know. I think there's nothing more romantic than that. It makes my soul so happy. And like I said, even if this all turns out to be fake, I'm still having a good ass time. Like, this isn't affecting my daily life. In fact, it has only improved my life and has not taken me into La La Land. I promise. I've already a full-time renter in La La Land, but in fact, this has helped me ground into my day-to-day life more than ever before. So just know that astrology is grounding, is all about it, understanding who you are and what you're here and what you're meant to do, and it's capable of so much more beyond that. And I don't know. Thank you for listening. Like I said, next episode, it will be our first lunation forecast. I'm super excited. I've never done quite as deep of a dive on our lunation cycles as what this next episode's going to be. So I'm very curious about what I will discover about myself and what we will be discovering together about this upcoming new moon in Leo adventure we are going to be going on. Okay, because we're going to be talking about, there's going to be that full moon, of course. We got Mercury retrograde coming up, which we will be talking about, and is a big fear-mongering moment for a lot of individuals, so we'll be touching upon that narrative as well. Mars will be entering Libra, and the most important, well, to me, in my opinion, the most important part of this upcoming lunation, which is the morning star Venus, and how she is currently going retrograde, and what that all entails regarding this new moon lunation. Thank you so much for listening once again. This has been so fun. And I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you, next week, I suppose, next Monday. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can find all of my socials on the episode archive page, which is phasey.love/oddcast. You can find everywhere that this is being played. You can find all the ways to contact me there. And once again, I am having a sale on all of my offerings on my website right now. That is Goodbye Cafe 15. Goodbye Cafe 15 for 15% off my entire store. Please use that. It's good until the end of August. So that's it from me. Thank you. Also, add me on Neopets. Why has no one added me on Neopets? I'm Doogsley. I want to be your Neo friend. We should hang out. I have so much shit to give away. Also, I won the Neopian lottery the other day. Not to brag. Okay, I'm out of here. Take care. The day that this episode airs, it will be a Taurus moon. Ah, so comfy. Yeah, maybe take some extra time today. Get snug as a bug in a rug. Maybe get outside, go into a hammock. I've been hammocking like crazy. There's nothing better than a good hammock day. Okay, I'm literally stalling. Take care, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you again for tuning in to the Lazy Phasey Oddcast of Wonder and Whimsy. I am your host, Doogsley, and I just want to say thank you again for tuning in and listening to me wax poetic about astrology for like an hour. You guys rule. You're everything to me. Okay, I gotta chill. Goodbye, everyone.